Powered by Samsonite. Tested like Samsonite. Indian Oil. Pehle Indian, phir oil.
Good evening, hello and welcome. You're with the news today, Wednesday night. This is your primetime destination. News, newsmakers, talking points. The big talking point tonight. India's women Olympic wrestlers are out on the street staging a dharna. We'll tell you why in a moment. Also, India set to overtake China as the world's most populous nation. Demographic dividend or a disaster in the making. That too on the news today. But first, as always, it's time for the 9 headlines at 9. India's Olympic wrestlers hit the street to protest against Wrestling Federation of India alleged sexual harassment by the top boss. Fed President BJP MP Brij Bhushan Saran Singh denies all the charges. Battle for the Northeast kicks off the 2023 election battle. Tripura to go to the polls February 16. Nagaland, Meghalaya to vote on 27 February. Counting in all states on the 2nd of March. K. Chandrasekhar Rao looks to stitch a third front anti-BJP, anti-Congress alliance. Kejriwal, Akhilesh, Pinarayi Vijayan attend the key huddle. Mamta, Uddhav, Congress, DMK not part of the meet. Punjab Congress leader and former Finance Minister Manpreet Singh Badal jumped ship to the BJP, blames factionalism in the Congress and interference from Delhi for his exit. Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia finally breaks the silence on Tejasvi Surya's flight scare row, says the BJP MP opened the emergency exit door by mistake, has already apologized for it. Tamil Nadu Governor Ravi attempts to end the state renaming row, clarifies that he never wanted to rename the state, says he used the name in a historical context. This as the DMK mounts pressure to have the governor removed. Ex-RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan speaks to India today at the Davos summit, says Rahul Gandhi is not a pappu, stands for peace and democracy in the country. Two Bollywood actors wage a war against conman Sukesh. Jacqueline claims Sukesh ruined her career and misled her. Nora Fatehi accuses Sukesh of seeking undue favors in exchange of luxuries. And Shubman Gill scripts history, becomes the 5th Indian to score an ODI double ton. Scores 208 in 149 balls against New Zealand in the first ODI in Hyderabad. But the big story that we are tracking today is coming from our country's top wrestlers who, guess what, are not on the mat but are on the streets. That's right, India's Olympic wrestlers who've done the country proud in recent times are up in arms and staging a dharna in the heart of the national capital against the Wrestling Federation of India. Wrestler Vinesh Phogat, the first Indian woman wrestler to win a gold medal for the nation in both Asian and the Commonwealth Games, has accused the president of the Wrestling Federation of India and multiple times BJP MP from Uttar Pradesh, Brij Bhushan Saran Singh, of sexually assaulting other female wrestlers. Olympians like Bajrang Punia, Sakshi Malik, who have won medals at the Olympics, are among the many wrestlers who've hit the street in protest, accusing Brij Bhushan Saran Singh of deliberately targeting, leveling death threats against our top athletes. So this is what we are seeing on the streets. Brij Bhushan Saran Singh on one side and the wrestlers of the country on the other. Ask yourself, India's top Olympians have now been taking to the street. The sports ministry has not said a word on this, and therefore questions will be raised. Where does the truth lie? It's our top story.
India's top wrestlers have hit the streets in protest. Those who have made headlines all around the globe had to skip practice and launch a strong protest in the national capital for them to be heard. Olympic winners like Bajrang Punia and Sakshi Malik were joined by many other wrestlers as they came together to take on the Wrestling Federation of India. The protesting wrestlers minced no words in their attack against the WFI and said that they were harassed by the federation's arbitrary laws.
सब अपने घर परिवार से इतना मतलब नहीं इन्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं, इतनी दूर दूर टूर्नामेंट होते हैं और जो नहीं खेलने जाता कोई इंजरी के तरफ बैन कर देते हैं। मैंने खुद देखा फेडरेशन के बाहर छोटे छोटे बच्चे ऐसे बैठे हैं कि हमें माफी मिल जाए और हमें आगे खेलने का मौका मिले। मन करता है तो माफी मिलती है, मन नहीं करता है तो भगा दिया जाता है फेडरेशन से।
But that was just the tip of the iceberg. Vinesh Fogart launched a scathing attack against the BJP MP and WFI President Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh of sexual harassment.
कोचेज हैं जो फेडरेशन के खास हैं, जो खुद शोषण करते हैं, महिला कोचों के साथ में गलत व्यवहार करते हैं और वही कोचेज जो कैंप में लड़कियां होती हैं उनके साथ में बातचीत करवाते हैं लड़कियों की शोषण करवाने के लिए ही। और अध्यक्ष जी ने खुद पता नहीं कितनी लड़कियों का शोषण किया आज तक।
However, Brij Bhushan Sharan has rubbished the allegations and called the protests against him a well-planned conspiracy.
अगर हमारे कोचों के द्वारा या हमारे फेडरेशन के द्वारा या हमारे द्वारा कुछ ऐसा होता था तो ये खिलाड़ी तो प्रधानमंत्री जी तक भी चले जाते हैं, साई के डायरेक्टर से भी अपनी बात कह सकते हैं। तो ये सारी बातें अभी क्यों निकल करके आ रही हैं? और उसके बाद सामने कौन है ये भी नहीं है। किस खिलाड़ी के साथ किसने किया, कोच ने किसके साथ किया, हमने किसके साथ किया या और किसने किया, आखिर कोई सामने भी तो होना चाहिए।
The wrestlers have made it clear that they will not back down. But Brij Bhushan Sharan can be a difficult customer to handle and this may well be a long standoff. Sports Bureau, India Today.
Think about it. Our wrestlers bring glory to the country and today they are out on the street because they believe that the person who heads the Wrestling Federation, Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh, who at one time, remember, was also a TADA détenu, is now in the Bharatiya Janata Party, is accused of sexual harassment, no less. The Sports Ministry, as I said, has been silent on the issue. We tried, in fact, to get the Sports Minister, Anurag Thakur. He brushed aside our camera at that moment. Rahul Mehra is sports activist and lawyer. He is joining me at this moment. Rahul has taken up the issue of the manner in which sports federations are run in this country. Rahul, is this a classic example once again of a federation which is run like a personal fiefdom and therefore the sports persons have no say and eventually have to come on the street to register their protest?
Yeah, Rajdeep, every time I think I've seen the lowest of the low in Indian sports, and here comes another small chapter, this time a pretty huge one, and I'm glad all the sports persons for the first time are together in it. Let's call spade a spade. This is a gentleman who is deep-rooted in politics. Nothing wrong with that, but then I've been championing that, the mainstream politicians, the MPs, the MLAs and the others must stay out of the governance of sports in India. Our Honorable Prime Minister takes pride in having a direct connect with the sports persons. I hope this time he calls all 31 of them, doesn't waste even a minute further, and sorts this mess out. And in the interim period, the MP from Kesarganj, UP, of the BJP, 3-time or maybe 4 times member of parliament, is asked to just step aside and somebody else in the interim takes over.
So you're saying the Prime Minister confidence. Okay. So you're saying the Prime Minister must intervene. Here is a Prime Minister who claims he has a direct equation. He speaks directly to the players. Remember when the Indian hockey team, women's hockey team came forth, the Prime Minister was immediately on the line talking to the players, reassuring them. The question now is that the players are on a dharna. They were on a dharna till about 8 p.m. in the winter, and they are going back, they say, on the street tomorrow at 10 a.m., claiming that the man in charge and indeed many other coaches in the Wrestling Federation are involved in sexual harassment. Now, there will be those, Rahul, who will say that, look, Brijbhushan Saran Singh deserves a fair hearing. He will also have to be heard. Should the Prime Minister be intervening at this stage, or should it be left to the Sports Minister of the country? Anurag Thakur, Sports Minister, is also very proactive, claiming that, you know, we are pushing for more gold at the Paris Olympics next year. Should he, you can see those images, there is Anurag Thakur, and our reporter there is trying to buttonhole him. He is not speaking, so he refuses to speak on the subject. Shouldn't Anurag Thakur at least be the one to initiate an inquiry based on such serious charges, albeit against a BJP MP?
So ordinarily, Rajdeep, what you're saying is absolutely right. Why should the Honorable Prime Minister intervene at the outset? But, you know, like I said, let's not make any mistake about this particular issue. He is a member of the ruling party. He is 4 times MP from UP. He's a very senior and a person who has a lot of clout within BJP. And therefore, unless and until it comes right from the very top, I don't think Mr. Anurag Thakur, being the junior minister, though in the cabinet, would be able to take lift even a small finger against this gentleman. So which is why I said, and I'm not saying, you know, you hold him guilty. I said, in order to ensure that there is a free and fair and a transparent and something which is seen to be free and fair kind of an investigation, you can't have the man at the helm of the affairs trying to influence or trying to, maybe there are certain issues, there are certain
so you're saying he has to step aside,
wiped off.
You're saying he should step aside till the inquiry at least is complete. He will have to prove these charges are false, only then he can continue as the Wrestling Federation. I just want to stop you for a moment because our correspondent who's been tracking
and
this
one of the
story,
major reasons, Rajdeep, for that is
Rajdeep,
one of the major reasons for that is also the fact that, you know, you take the trust deficit in the administrator. How many people would believe what Mr. You know, the president of WFI is actually coming in the open media and saying to the people of India? I don't see anybody taking him on his face value. And compare this with the people who have won at the Olympics, people who have given us glory.
I agree with you. I agree with you that the credibility, just a minute now,
in Commonwealth and Asian Games,
the credibility of the
credibility factor is huge in favor of the players.
Is much higher among the players than it is among the administrators at the moment. Our correspondent Nitin Srivastav at the moment is outside the house of Brijbhushan Saran Singh. Nitin, Brijbhushan Saran Singh is claiming this is a conspiracy against him. But why would the players, many of whom have given their lives to the sport, risk their careers to make such serious allegations? Clearly, the MP has much to answer for. What is the MP saying at the moment? You're there at his house. What does he have to say?
Well, actually, I'm inside his house and I was trying to get him on camera to actually speak about in large that what exactly he's thinking about all the allegations which is made against him. But he clearly denied that I'm not coming live on TV channels because I just wanted to keep it actually very clear that I'll just say what I wanted to. He actually don't want to respond on the harsh questions which actually we wanted to ask him. But one thing which is very clear, Rajdeep, is that wrestlers are very clear on their mind that they actually have united themselves and they come to the Jantar Mantar at Jantar Mantar.
How long has Brijbhushan Saran Singh been the head of the Wrestling Federation now?
I think he started his journey in 2011, so it's almost 10 plus years. So till that time he is the president, and this is not the first case actually when he used to, slap wrestlers on the dais. He used to abuse wrestlers on the mat, and
he used to slap wrestlers. He used to slap. Nitin, you are telling me that Brijbhushan Saran Singh. There are instances where he has slapped wrestlers.
Yes.
Absolutely shocking.
Of course, there are videos which we actually played long back. It is a year ago when there was a camp, there was a national wrestling championship was going on, and he slapped the wrestler on the dais because he wanted to tell him that I'm the caliber person, I can actually compete here. But he slapped him.
Right.
He slapped him. So that's the thing. That is what he is doing. So nothing new for Mr. Brijbhushan Sharan Singh. The allegations, which actually I was there in the press conference, and Vinesh broke down, telling about her experience with the Wrestling Federation of India. She spoke in large. She said that I was not wearing the India jersey when I was competing in Commonwealth Games. Why? Because the quality of that jersey was not well. I just don't want it to be in uncomfortable situation during the bout. So my point is why these athletes are leaving the mat and protesting in a white bed sheet at Jantar Mantar. There's something which forced them to come out and speak about it.
But where is you're at the house? He's obviously not willing to speak at the moment and come live on camera. Yes, what were you saying?
I'll just ask my cameraman to show, if you can just pan and show the door. We are just right out of at the door of Mr. Brijbhushan Sharan Singh. He is inside the room. He is not taking our questions. He is actually denying. He is saying, if you want, you can record. I will not come live. Why? My question is why?
Right, because he obviously doesn't want to take your questions live. Clearly, I want to tell people and viewers, Brijbhushan Sharan Singh, my friends, was for a long time a TADA detainee. He was accused in the 1990s of providing transportation to Dawood Ibrahim. Remember the Dawood Ibrahim? In case you don't know, underworld don, the man behind the 1993 Mumbai blast. Brijbhushan Sharan Singh at the time was a MP from Gonda in Uttar Pradesh, and he was accused under TADA of having provided transportation to some of the underworld members of the Dawood gang. Now, this person has switched parties. He is now in the BJP, and therefore questions must be asked. If the Prime Minister is saying that he wants to promote Olympian sport, then the first thing that Mr. Modi and indeed Anurag Thakur, Sports Minister, should do is to at least make Brijbhushan Sharan Singh step aside until all these serious charges are answered. As I keep saying, he's not alone. He's been in this wrestling federation for more than a decade, and many of our federation chiefs have been in these positions for a very long time. And we must ask, the athletes must come first, not the officials. That's very clear. I want to give a final word here to Rahul Mehra, because Rahul, we've got almost every federation headed by people who have been in those posts often for years on end. And they don't want to leave. Kissa kursi ka. You'll have to push a Brijbhushan Sharan Singh to get him to leave the wrestling federation.
So Rajdeep, there are two things out here. One, after a more than a decade-long legal battle, Delhi High Court recently came up with a landmark judgment where some of these issues, in fact, quite a few of these issues have been now settled. The IOA, Indian Olympic Association, has challenged it in the Supreme Court. Thankfully, the Supreme Court hasn't granted any stay and is holistically looking into reforms in Indian sports. And, the tenure, which was an unending tenure of 30, 40, 50 years, has now been reduced because of these, judgments of the court in my public interest litigation to a maximum of 12 years. So they can't have more than 3 tenures of 4 years each, a maximum of 12 years, which is still a very large tenure according to me. Nevertheless, Rajdeep, in this particular case, there are two things which immediately must be done. One, where is the sexual harassment committee? There is a code under the sports code that every sports federation, national sports federation must have. And they must have stringent code on sexual harassment. Where is that? What is the code? If WFI, the Wrestling Federation of India, doesn't have that code, that itself is a ground for Anurag Thakur as a sports minister to de-recognize or suspend the entire body of Wrestling Federation of India, not only the president. I would say invoke that clause, throw these people out, get new people. And the second takeaway from the judgment says, in my case, minimum 25% sports persons is now mandated by law by the legal pronouncements of the court, where they have to be both in the General Assembly of the body as also in the Executive Committee. Please ask the Wrestling Federation of India, why is it that none of the Punyas and the Bajrangs and the Sakshis and the others are a part in the Executive or in the General Assembly of Wrestling Federation of India? This itself is a ground for suspension and derecognition of the entire body. So derecognize this body, have administrator. The administrator should be able to have, confidence of the players, overhaul this entire body and get players into this body so that, there is actual Swaraj in sports, self-governance of sports persons in sports, which have been fighting for a very long time now.
Let me leave it there. As I said, this is a moment for our sports administrators to reflect, for the sports minister not to stay silent as he is when we've tried to ask him questions. Anurag Thakur is known to be himself a sports person. So it's time that Mr. Thakur played with a straight bat. He's been a cricketer and ensured that action is taken against the Wrestling Federation, and at least Brij Bhushan Saran Singh is made to step aside until these very serious charges are answered. Simply unacceptable. Let's turn from there to our other focus tonight, the population issue. That's right. Take a look as to why we are making it our big story.
China's population shrinks by 0.85 million. First time ever in 60 years. UN projection for India in 2022 higher than latest Chinese numbers. Experts say India may have outtaken China's population. Working age population to cross 100 crore in 10 years. Can India find enough jobs for its workforce? Demographic dividend or disaster?
So is this a demographic dividend or simply a nightmare ahead of us? Can India really create jobs for its large workforce? What are going to be the challenges ahead for the country? Joining me now is Manish Sabharwal, Vice Chairman, Team Lease Services, someone who's seen as one of the country's leading experts looking at the job situation. Alok Vajpayee is Joint Director, Knowledge Management and Core Grants at the Population Foundation of India. Dr. Uday Shankar Mishra is Professor, International Institute for Population Sciences. And I'm also joined by, at this moment, by Sanjeev Ahluwalia, Advisor, Observer Research Foundation. But to you, Manish Sabharwal, because the fear is that while India's population seems to now be outstripping that of China, where are the jobs, the opportunities going to be created for this large population that we are confronted with? How do you see these numbers that are staring us in the face now?
I mean, population was a curse. Obviously, a demographic dividend is not people, it is productive people. And I think we have to sort of put this in context. India's unemployment numbers have stayed between 4 and 8% since independence. But our poverty has been 35–40%. So I think the question to ask is really, do we have a jobs problem or a wages problem? I don't think we have a jobs problem. Anybody who wants a job can get a job, they just can't get the wages they want or the wages they need. So I would be careful with framing, linking population directly to jobs. I think we need to think about productivity, we need to think about wages. I mean, China had a huge advantage. I mean, in 1985, the trade deficit with the US was $6 billion. Now it's $310 billion. That happened because of China's population. And obviously China's ability to make the 5 transitions which we call modernity, right? Farm to non-farm, rural to urban, informal to formal, school to work. So I would be careful with just saying a population is a curse. I mean, I think actually China losing a population equal to France, a working age population equal to France in the next 7 years is a child of their one-child policy, while India has a more organic control of our population. So I would be careful with positioning populations as either curses or as gifts. It's what you do with your population and can you make them productive. And we've proven that 5 million people in India can export more software than Saudi Arabia did oil last year, or 15 million Indians outside India can send us $100 billion of remittances. So I would just position this more as a productivity problem than a jobs problem.
So interestingly, you're saying don't get into the binary of demographic dividend versus disaster. You're actually suggesting look at issues of productivity. How do you make this population far more productive? I'll just come back to you, Manish, in a moment. Alok Vajpayee from the Population Foundation of India, we were told that it would be April, if I just look at numbers, by which time India would have outstripped China in its population. How should we see these numbers today?
Well, according to UN experts, India will overtake China sometime in April this year. I think India's overtaking China is not important. What is important is that India has a large young population, which is our advantage in comparison to China. And if we look at the demographic, every third person is a young person in the age group of 10 to 24 years in the country. And they have huge potential to contribute to the national economy and growth.
So
this potential is not enough.
So you're saying it's the young population that is the key in a way to this debate. Dr. Uday Shankar Mishra, should we be seeing therefore this population as an opportunity in a way? Or should we see it as something that we should be worried about going ahead?
Let me begin by saying this, that, count of population matters the least when we don't look at the composition. And in fact, this whole debate about India surpassing China, the voluminous size of the workforce that is staring at us, we perhaps are doing one mistake, that we are looking population in a territorial limit. In fact, what is very clear in terms of the population transition of India, its uniqueness has been its pace rather than the quantum. The quantum transition keeps us growing till few more years. But the pace at which the population transition, the demographic transition has taken place in India is unique, and that pace gives us an advantage. This old debate, I'm not trying to engage about whether it's a disaster, it is, whether we are able to reap the dividend. But I must put it frankly, that India's population in the global workforce, India's global workforce will be 22% Indians in coming years between 2021 and 2041. So my co-panelists have rightly indicated that actually the pace has been a big advantage for us. And second thing is that India's internal demographic diversity is also offering an opportunity for us to deal with the workforce structure imbalances that you observe.
But Sanjeev Ahluwalia, the fact is that labor participation rates, look at it in Asia, both men and women in particular are among the lowest. So the worry is that yes, your population is expanding. We have a large young population, potentially productive, as Manish Sabharwal put it. But the truth is, labor participation rates are very low, and that should surely worry us.
Rajdeep, let me just make 3 points. One is, this term demographic dividend, it derives from the concept that if you have more young people, then they'll work and growth will go up. And generally speaking, growth is considered to be a good thing. The only problem is that we don't properly measure the quality of growth. And this is something that is going to become very important in the 3 decades ahead of us because of climate change. So unless and until the growth that happens because of the demographic dividend is positive in terms of green growth, that is nominal growth less the cost that the environment is bearing for incurring that growth, we would probably be accumulating more carbon emissions than ever before, because on top of a 1,400 million population, we would be adding another 400 million population in the next 30 years. So I think that this term itself is archaic and we should junk it. If we should devise a new term for green demographic dividend. Do we have that? I think it's very doubtful, because as you know, we are at a very early stage of decarbonization. So yes, there is no country in the world which would want to see a declining population, because that is a terrible worry. But just because we are growing, our population is young, does not mean that we are ready for the future.
Okay. Manish Sabharwal, given what you're hearing, you started or kick-started this by saying that don't look at this as a binary between whether it's a dividend or a disaster. Don't look at actual population growth. Let's just look at how productive you're making this population. The reason I now turn to you is because there's a sense that the moment these numbers have come out, there's been a wave among our netas some are suggesting, look, we've been telling you we need a population control bill. We need to also control our population. The Chinese have done it. Do you believe that simply again is a diversion from the real issues involved here, that that's not really what this debate is about, population control or not?
I mean, the best population control comes from education and economic growth. I mean, Kerala's demographics are the same as Italy. So I think, at this stage in our life as a country at 75 years, I don't think we need to put population control at the front of the agenda. As long as we deliver education, as long as we deliver economic growth, we've seen how we've had a much more organic control of our population. But, we have to be careful with sort of talking about green jobs and declining populations. I mean, in Japan, the sale of adult diapers has crossed baby diapers, and that's an absolute disaster. I mean, poverty is very green, and we have the most green jobs in the world. So I think I would prefer to frame it as productivity at 5 levels, right? At states, at sectors, at cities, at firms, and at individuals. I live in Karnataka, my parents live in UP. Both states have the same GDP, but Karnataka does it with 1/4 the number of people. If you think of cities, in Bangalore, if everybody in India lived in Bangalore, our GDP would be more than China. So we have to think of productivity, and if obviously at individual it's a skill issue, on the firm level it's a productivity issue. There's a 24 times difference in productivity between our biggest and smallest manufacturing firms. And obviously sectors I pointed out already, right? 42% of our labor force works in agriculture. It only generates 14% of GDP, while 0.8%, a rounding error, of our labor force works in software, but it generates 8% of GDP. So I would submit that, look, this train has left the station on population control. I mean, the world population used to grow at 2%, it's growing at 1%, it'll probably go at 0 in another 50 years. So we should really focus on productivity, because that's really what poverty is about, productivity, and prosperity is about productivity. So let's just focus, and there is a policy agenda at states, at cities, at sectors, at firms, and at individuals that we can pursue. And I think if we pursue that, China and India had the same per capita GDP in 1991. They're now 5 times more than us. And Korea had the same GDP as us in 1971. They're now 20 times more than us. So I would say that let's just focus on, what is controllable, which is productivity, and population control is yesterday's newspaper, or at least the train has left the station.
Interestingly, the way you put it, the train has left the station, because I had put down various disadvantages of the kind of sheer pressure that our population puts on our resources. Stress on resources, a potential north-south divide that will increase, the south much more in control of its numbers than the north, an uneducated large workforce posing challenges, overstretching of health infrastructure, and spending on education becoming a big challenge apart from job creation. Do you believe, Uday Shankar Mishra, I am exaggerating some of these issues that could arise? For example, as I said, the north-south divide, where the southern part of the country is in control of its population, not so much the Bimaru states?
Absolutely. I think you have put it in right perspective that it is actually the management which is important. It's not the count. It's not about the singular focus on productivity and all, as my co-panelists were discussing. I would rather say that there is a need for demographic governance. And the demographic governance should have three triggers, which are very important at this juncture. They are migration, aging, and urbanization. Because when I say demographic governance on these three triggers, that necessarily tells that given our demographic diversity within the country, as you rightly told, how is South managing and how is the labor force which is getting generated in the North or the Central India can well be balanced within the country. Second thing is that about aging is a concern which actually is in a slow pace rising, which needs preparation for itself. And the final one is urbanization, which nobody is talking about. Mm-hmm. Basically, the urban space, given the current urban space and the urban cities are getting completely stressed out with the pressure of population, for which we need new urban centers. In fact, in some of my past work, I was actually dwelling on this as among Indian states, which state has the best quality of urbanization? And I refer to quality of urbanization as the urban centers being scattered all around the place. It should not be concentrated in one place. And the basic thing is that new features, mobility features are what? It is IT, it is education related. So obviously, our infrastructure governance in these two parts, in terms of employment generation, in terms of educational infrastructure, we need to look at so that this mobility is balanced all around. So obviously, the imbalance that we are seeing or we are considering it as a threat is perhaps not a reality. It is the question of management of the population in its distribution so that it goes down to giving us a situation that will be giving a good demographic governance.
Sanjeev Ahluwalia, as a final word, the fact is that you've got China with slowing growth rates, both population and economic. There's a sense that while China faces now really a serious crisis of an aging population, we have the benefit in a way of a young population. Does that give us some kind of an edge in a strange way over the Chinese at the moment?
Rajdeep, as I said, having a young population is a bonus, but do remember that it is a time-bound. It's like a check that can expire if it is not used in time. That's very important. And I'm afraid we've had a young population for a very long time, but we haven't used that check very well. And on the issue of productivity, productivity is a part of green productivity. For productivity is a simple concept. You push it in some capital, some investment, how much do you get out of it? And the efficiency is defined by that. But it takes no account of the amount of destruction that is caused to your natural resources, air, water, and other natural resources like forests. So it's obviously only a very partial measurement of total productivity, not total factor productivity, but total green productivity. It's important for us to switch from productivity to measuring that metric.
One final word from you, Manish Savarwal, because a McKinsey Global Institute report, August 2020, said that India needed to generate 90 million non-farm jobs between 2023 and 2030 to absorb new workers, an additional 30 million workers to shift from farm work to non-farm sectors. Do you see enough of policy initiatives that recognize the need for this shift?
I think so. On an aggregate level, unemployment is not exploding because obviously the two labor market shock absorbers traditionally have been farm employment and self-employment. But both of it's not self-employment, it's self-exploitation. So my sense is on an aggregate level, we'll probably do fine. The geographic question of do we take jobs to people or people to jobs? You know, Chinese New Year is a 4-day weekend when 200 million people buy a train ticket on that 4-day weekend. We don't have that on Chhath, Diwali, Eid or Christmas, and I think we will. You know, Kerala is already 9.5% Bihari. I mean, they sent 10% to the Middle East, so they brought 9.5% from Bihar. So Chhath, which is a uniquely Bihari festival, is very big in Kerala. So I think the jobs to people, people to jobs debate will continue. But India as a continent, you can't expect the whole of India, and nor has that happened in any other country in the world, to industrialize, create jobs or have high wages at the same time. So in some level, internal migration, as long as we keep our state borders open, will also handle the crisis quite nicely.
Okay.
If you call it a crisis, I think it's an opportunity.
You're saying it's an opportunity and perhaps an opportunity which is time-bound in a strange way. So we will need to take advantage of that opportunity over a finite period of time, increase productivity, use this opportunity, even as there will be those who will be concerned over the fact that perhaps population is an issue. According to Manish Sabarwal, among others, that's a train that's already left the station. Thank you all very much for joining me on the news today. Appreciate your giving us a perspective on that population question. Let's turn from there to our big political story of the day, which today comes from Telangana, because in a way, there has been the huge question in the build-up to 2024 over opposition unity. Rahul Gandhi is on a Bharat Jodo Yatra. Now we've got Telangana Chief Minister KCR, who is projecting himself also as a national leader. Today in Khammam in Telangana, 3 chief ministers, Arvind Kejriwal, Bhagwant Mann and Pinarayi Vijayan, along with Akhilesh Yadav, joined KCR on the stage for a big show of strength of opposition unity. But the Congress, the Trinamool Congress, among others, stayed away. Take a look at just why the opposition still remains a divided house.
The Telangana satraps opens a new front. K. Chandrasekhar Rao has turned his hat in the ring to be the challenger to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Rao entered the race for 2024 with a massive show of strength in Khammam. The whole city turned pink as Telangana Rashtra Samiti, now named the Bharat Rashtra Samiti, cadres from across the state reached the venue to show their support.
మీకు భాష అర్థం కాకపోయినా చాలా చక్కగా ఇంతసేపు ఇంత ఓపికతోని ఇది ఈ దేశంలో ప్రబలమైన మార్పుకు సంకేతం అని చెప్పి నేను భావిస్తా ఉన్నా. భారతదేశం తన లక్ష్యాన్ని కోల్పోయిందా, దారి తప్పిందా? అయ్యా మోడీ గారు, మీ పాలసీ ప్రైవేటైజేషన్, మా పాలసీ నేషనలైజేషన్.
As KCR floated the new front, sounding the bugle from Telangana, he was joined by SP leader Akhilesh Yadav, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann and Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan.
पहली बार इस देश के अंदर एक उम्मीद की किरण जागने लगी है. इस देश के अंदर कुछ मुख्यमंत्री एक साथ आ रहे हैं, कुछ नेता अखिलेश यादव जी जैसे नेता एक साथ आ रहे हैं और अब हम सब मिलकर इस देश के विकास की चर्चा कर रहे हैं.
आज जरूरत है प्रोग्रेसिव नेताओं की, प्रोग्रेसिव सरकारों की, और मुझे उम्मीद है कि जिस तरीके से भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने देश को पीछे कर दिया है हर चीज में, हम सब मिलकर के जो मंच पर बैठे हैं और प्रदेशों में भी हैं, जो साथ मिलकर के काम करेंगे तो देश को एक नई सरकार भी और नए तरह का एक प्रोग्रेसिव एजेंडा देकर के देश को आगे ले जाने का काम करेंगे.
Unethical efforts to form governments in the states weaken the very foundations of our democracy, which is based on a multi-party system. Such a multi-party system is essential if we are to preserve and promote our diversities while remaining united as one.
As significant as the faces on the stage are the ones who were missing. Parties like the TMC, DMK, NCP, Shiv Sena and many others were either not invited or did not attend. This leads to the question, can an anti-BJP front without the principal opposition party, the Congress and its allies, take on the might of the Modi-Shah juggernaut? What the mega rally in Khammam proved is opposition unity remains a pipe dream. Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's take a break at this point. Up ahead is our Good News Today story. It comes from Madhya Pradesh. You're watching the news today. News without the noise.
You're watching an India Today special broadcast being brought to you from the stunning ski resort of Clusters, Davos.
The 53rd World Economic Forum is back at the snow-clad slopes of Davos. The smartest minds gather to debate the world's biggest challenges: energy crisis, industry headwinds, geopolitical risks, social vulnerabilities. India Today and Business Today are at ground zero to bring you all the action. Catch top corporate tycoons, politicians and intellectuals as they discuss cooperation in a fragmented world. Watch the Davos brainstorm only on India Today and Business Today TV.
Welcome back. Let's turn to tonight's Good News Today story. There's always good news in this wonderful country of ours. It comes from Madhya Pradesh, where a group of women are charting a new path in empowerment. From charity to traffic management, they help whenever they can. Tonight's Good News Today story comes from Madhya Pradesh.
It is often said, when women are empowered, whole society benefits. A group of women working for Shiv Shakti Foundation in Resin town of Madhya Pradesh are proof of that.
सर्वप्रथम तो हमारा जो संगठन है उसका नाम शिव शक्ति फाउंडेशन है, जिसके माध्यम से हमारा एक ही मात्र उद्देश्य है समाज सेवा, जिसमें हमारे द्वारा नेकी की दीवार का कार्यक्रम स्टार्ट किया गया है। दूसरा आपका नर्मदा सफाई अभियान हमारे यहाँ प्रत्येक रविवार को आयोजित किया जाता है।
The group works on multiple fronts. They donate clothes to school students so that they can fight the bitter cold wave.
शिव शक्ति फाउंडेशन के द्वारा मुझे मिला है, स्वेटर मिली है आज। तो मेरे पास स्वेटर नहीं थी, तो मैम ने मुझे स्वेटर दी है आज। मुझे नहीं, इन सब लोगों को दी है।
They motivate other citizens to join social work.
हम ये सोचते हैं कि अगर हमसे हो सके जितनी मदद हो पा रही है हम उतनी मदद करें और लोग इसमें सहयोग करें और सभी की मदद हो सके और सभी हमें सपोर्ट करें.
Every Sunday, they head towards the Narmada River to clean it. And they even help the traffic police.
आज बहुत अच्छा लगा कि हमारे शक्ति फाउंडेशन पूरा परिवार आया हुआ है और हम लोग हर रविवार आएंगे और 11 बजे से 2 बजे तक हम लोग 3 घंटे का समय इधर पे बिताएंगे और हम आप सभी से निवेदन करते हैं आप सभी आएँ और इधर पे गंदगी ना करें और हमारा सहयोग दें. हम सहयोग की आपसे अपेक्षा करते हैं.
These women from Resin want to set a new example for women empowerment. Bureau Report, India Today.
More power to these women and more power to our image of the day. Shubman Gill, the new star of Indian cricket, hitting a remarkable 208 runs of just 149 deliveries, becoming the youngest to score a double ton in a one-day international. Gill on fire in the first ODI against New Zealand, displaying some outstanding batting. We leave you with some of the 9 sixes that he hit as part of that glorious double century. India has found a new cricket hero. Bye for now.
There's so many people who enjoy watching you play. And what a privilege it's been to watch you take these strides. 666, 200 not out of 336. We're seeing a magnificent young player in full flow today. What a player.
Give us your sense of what's happening inside China.
Great to be here with you, Rahul. You know, a lot of people here from different parts of the world have been concerned about China. And of course, being our close neighbors, we're watching how the situation unravels. India, because of its excellent vaccine coverage and the herd immunity, because we allowed infections to spread like other countries and didn't have a zero COVID policy after the initial lockdowns, India, along with other countries, are in a far better situation. Do I fear, this sort of thing happening in India again, like what's happening in China? I don't think so, because, as I mentioned, our vaccine has been very effective and the coverage has been very effective. China, sadly, has not had both of those situations pan out, and we just pray and hope that they solve their issue. In fact, I was talking to some people to try and offer the Western vaccines and Indian vaccines to them as boosters so they can control their hospitalizations and come out of even spreading the infection.
Are the Chinese interested in your vaccine?
I've requested them to put political issues aside and just look at the bigger picture, because, for the world, it's important that China comes back also. And we just wish them the best and a speedy recovery, because if you look at supply chain disruptions, investments, uncertainty, people are still a little uncertain to make investments in this part of the world because of what's happening there. But of course, given that you've seen the response here, India is definitely by far the most reliable and chosen destination for investors. And given the choice, of course, India stands far ahead.
I started by asking Adar about what's happening in China, because what's happening in China from a health emergency perspective also is potentially one of the biggest opportunities for India as global companies realign their supply chains. To what extent do you think at this moment, in the way things are, is India being able to benefit from the idea that companies need to look beyond China in this China plus one strategy of it?
I think that's playing out quite favorably for India, because the aftershocks of what just happened in China, but also what's happened in Ukraine and Russia, has made organizations, global companies look at de-risking supply chains. It's no longer about cost optimization, but about resilience, managing risks, etc. So when they're looking at another place beyond China, obviously there are other contenders. But India is special because India is not just a source, it can also be a market. And with the PLI schemes and the government trying to do more to attract investments, there is certainly a strong case for investments to come into India, which you've seen in electronics and traditionally areas where we've not seen so much of investments. So I think it's a good time for India.
heaters and blankets inside cages. This is how Lucknow's Nawab Wajid Ali Shah Zoological Garden is protecting its animals from the cold wave that has swept North India. The zoo administration has also placed hay grass inside the cages of tigers, lions and bears. Heaters are placed in the cages of reptiles as they need constant heat to maintain their body temperatures. Apart from keeping the animals warm, zoo authorities say special winter diet is being followed for animals.
जो हमारे बाड़े हैं उनमें जहाँ जहाँ जालियाँ लगी हुई हैं और जहाँ से हवा तेज़ी से पास होने की संभावना होती है वहाँ पर हम लोगों ने पॉलीथीन लगाया है। जिन बाड़ों में हीटर की ज़रूरत है वहाँ पर हमने जानवरों के लिए हीटर लगाए हैं। इसके अलावा हिरन प्रजाति के लिए व्यापक रूप से पुआल की व्यवस्था की गई है जिस पर वो लेटते भी हैं और उसको खाते भी हैं।
The harsh winter is unbearable for many of these animals, but the zoo initiative has made life a bit easier for them.
लखनऊ के चिड़ियाघर में क्या किए गए हैं इंतजाम। ठंड आप सभी को मुबारक, पर उस ठंड के साथ साथ सेहत का ध्यान रखना भी शायद बेहद ज़रूरी है, फिर चाहे हम इंसान हो और चाहे चिड़ियाघर या बाहर रहने वाले तमाम जानवर और पक्षी।
With Samad Srivastava from Lucknow, Bureau Report, India Today. Co-powered by Samsonite. Tested like Samsonite. Volkswagen Tiguan, India's safest SUVW. LIC, हर पल आपके साथ।
India wins the nail-biter thriller against New Zealand at Hyderabad. India has taken a 1-0 lead in the 3-match series against New Zealand. India actually survived by the skin of our teeth. Won by 12 runs in this Hyderabad ODI. Shubman Gill's double ton, of course, powered India to this spectacular win. Shubman Gill's double ton helped India get to 349 for 8. Shubman Gill scored 208 of 149 balls, 19 boundaries, 9 sixes. That was Shubman Gill's stellar performance. But some anxious moments when Shardul Thakur was bowling to Michael Bracewell, and then in the last over there were 6 runs when New Zealand needed 14 from 5 balls. That was when it looked tense. It looked tense at that point of time. Of course, I have India Today's Nikhil Nas joining me live from the newsroom. Nikhil, a big win for India, and this win, Nikhil, will be known for Shubman Gill's double ton, or will it also be known for those anxious moments in the last over?
Well, that's right, Gaurav. Once India got 350, and especially when New Zealand were down for 131 for 6, chasing a massive total like 350, I don't think anyone, even the staunchest supporters of New Zealand, would have given them any chance. But then you have someone like a Michael Bracewell. Let me just tell you a little bit about him. He just made his debut less than a year ago, hasn't played too many games, just about 4 test matches, about 17 ODIs, so doesn't have too much of international experience. But in the short span that he's played. What a mature inning that we witnessed from Michael Bracewell. And remember, he also chips in as a bowler. So an all-rounder gave India a scare, almost took them home. That 140 runs would be overshadowed by the 200 that Shubman Gill got. But on another day, a ball here and there, if he connected in that last over or the second last over, who knows, the result could have been completely different. So plenty for the Indian team to ponder over, especially when it comes to their bowling. They have been leaking a lot of runs. It's the Indian batting that's been firing in the last few games. And why all of this, Gaurav, becomes very crucial is because this is the World Cup year. The World Cup is going to be happening in India, and after the disappointment that you've had in the two T20 World Cups, everyone's expecting India to do well. So every time they slip up, that performance is scrutinized, and I think the Indian bowlers leaking a lot of runs, and not just one. We had, you spoke about Shardul Thakur. There was Washington Sundar who leaked a lot of runs. Then you had someone like Hardik Pandya also leaking a lot of runs. So even in a scenario where you were dominating, to allow the opposition to come so close is something that needs to be looked at.
Oh, absolutely. And especially when the batsman had put on a stellar performance. Shubman Gill, to a large extent, he's actually been a major find. The last match, his century, of course, that time overshadowed by Virat Kohli, and this time once again.
Yeah, imagine, I was talking about Bracewell, Gaurav, just about a year, since he's made his debut. Look at Shubman Gill. I remember it was just 4 or 5 years ago. Here was a young kid who was playing under-19 cricket for India. Yes, he was touted to be the next big star. He had all the makings of a good batsman, technically very correct. But there's one thing, potential, and the other thing is results. So we've seen a lot of players with a lot of potential, but that does not necessarily translate into results. But Shubman Gill doesn't fall in that category. Much was expected out of him. I think there's an interesting, angle to all of this, Gaurav, that under-19 World Cup where he was the vice captain in India did very well. Guess who his coach was at the time? That was Rahul Dravid. Rahul Dravid then makes a transition to become the coach of the senior team, and guess who he puts his faith in? Someone like a Shubman Gill. Remember, you've actually had to ask someone as experienced as Shikhar Dhawan to move out of the ODI format just to accommodate Shubman Gill. Whilst that was done, there was a lot of criticism. Should you go with a youngster? Should you rely on a youngster in a World Cup year? But I think Rahul Dravid, Rohit Sharma, the captain, thought that he's the right person to back. And guess what? He's paying dividends with all the backing that he's got.
Oh, absolutely. Keep tracking that story. I will come back to you for more. But for the moment, Nikhil Naz, many thanks.
The desperate scramble for food grain and flour escalates in Pakistan. The cries for food escalates.
हमारा मुल्क सबसे ज़्यादा गंदा भी हमारे मुल्क में पाई जाती है, वो बाहर भेज देते हैं, सारा कुछ बाहर जा रहा है, आवाम क्या करे, ये आसान करें आवाम के ऊपर आटा देके.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif claims Pakistan has learnt its lessons.
Pakistan has learnt its lesson.
Shahbaz Sharif claims Pakistan seeks peace and dialogue with India.
India is our neighbor country. We are neighbors, and it is up to us to live peacefully and progress.
Is Pakistan serious about peace with India, or is this another tamasha for Western dole for Kangalistan? Pak peace tamasha is our top focus on India First.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif says Pakistan has learnt its lessons after 3 wars with India. Is that the indication that Pakistan has realized the futility of its Kashmir obsession? Has Pakistan realized 75 years of Kashmir obsession has resulted in Pakistan becoming a pauper state? There is an acute financial crisis. There is a food crisis, and there's an escalating political crisis. There's also a security crisis in Pakistan. Amidst all of this, does it truly want peace with India? Or will the nuclear weapon states survive on dole actually end up going bankrupt?
The desperate scramble for atta continues across Pakistan. Protests against the Shahbaz Sharif government are now raging across multiple cities and provinces, from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, from Sindh and Balochistan
amidst complaints that Pakistan's Punjab province is discriminating against other provinces.
Currently, there is not a single city in Pakistani-occupied Jammu Kashmir or Pakistani-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan, for that matter, where people are not on the streets protesting, whether they are doing sit-ins, public meetings like jalsas or rallies. People are out on the streets because there is no food.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has realized Pakistan is going under and claims Pakistan has learnt its lesson.
We have learnt our lesson and we want to live in peace with India, provided we are able to resolve our genuine problems.
Pakistan's Prime Minister concedes Pakistan has suffered after fighting 3 wars with India.
We had 3 wars with India, 3. And the consequence of those wars, as a result, it only brought more miseries, unemployment,
to nations,
poverty, and millions were demoted from their level of satisfaction to a lower level of satisfaction.
Pakistan has actually fought and lost all 4 wars to India from 1947 to 65 and from 1971, when Pakistan was split into 2, to the 1999 Kargil conflict. Pakistan's Prime Minister recently conceded he feels embarrassed to seek aid, loans and dole to keep Pakistan from sinking.
आप जानते हैं, आप मुझे हमें $1 अरब और दे दें, तो उसने कहा कि शहबाज शरीफ आप मेरे भाई, मैं आपको किस तरह इनकार कर सकता हूँ? हर दफा आता है, कोई और आता है तो आप कहते तो नहीं, लेकिन दिल के अंदर तो आप समझते होंगे ये पैसे मांगने आ गए हैं.
The situation in Pakistan is deteriorating virtually every day. Pakistan's foreign exchange reserves stand at a paltry $4.3 billion. That means Pakistan now has enough to import for barely 3 weeks. Pakistan has to repay close to $8.75 billion in the financial year 2023. Pakistan has to repay $73 billion in the next 3 years by end 2025-26. Pakistan has sought close to $4 billion both from the UAE and Saudi Arabia. Pakistan has sought another $1 billion from the IMF.
हम सब परेशान होते जा रहे हैं कि इन हालात में हुकूमत तेज रफ्तारी से उनको इक़दामात लेने चाहिए थे ताकि हम दिवालिये से बचें, मगर ऐसा हमें